So tonight we're here to talk about Milltown Road and McKennans Church Road, the traffic calming options. Nicole will go over some of the Zoom procedures when she starts her thing, but we just wanted to start first tonight from DelDOT. We have Peter Haig, who's our chief traffic engineer, myself, Wendy Carpenter, the traffic calming manager, Nicole Wilson, she's our traffic calming consultant, and Megan Barna, she's our constituent relations specialist. And then we have a couple of legislators, Senator Manzavinos, Representative Williams. I'm not sure if Representative Ramon is on. It doesn't look like it.
I don't think he's joined.
But so we're just gonna, okay. So we're just gonna go through some options. We'll have questions at the end. Senator Manzavinos, Representative Williams, did you want to say anything before we went into it?
Sure. I just want to thank you all for taking the time this evening. Thank you, everyone, for who's come out to listen. And I know there's been a lot of, we want to make sure we come up with some solutions here. And I appreciate the work DelDOT has done to work as quickly as they can to come up with some options to present this evening. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to say the same thing that Spiro said. Thank you to DelDOT. Thank you to the constituents that are here. Hopefully, they'll be happy with the ideas that we've come up with and looking forward to learning more. Thank you.
Okay, Nicole, you can take it away.
All righty. Everyone should be seeing my screen now. Please hop in the chat if you don't. So yes, as everyone has said, we're here to discuss Milltown Road and McKennans Church Road and the traffic calming concepts that we did put together to help reduce speeds on those two corridors. First, we did want to talk about just how we're going to do this Zoom tonight. Everyone is on mute and all videos are turned off for attendees. And at the end, we will take question and answers via the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. And if you are joining by phone, which I don't think I saw anyone on the phone, but you could also email your questions to this email shown on here. As Wendy said, we just want to present these proposed improvements and concepts, obtaining your feedback. And following this presentation, we are going to put these concepts onto the website. This link is currently live, but it does not have the concepts on there. So hopefully tomorrow or very shortly thereafter, you'll be able to view these on the website as well. We'll accept comments through July 6th. So for any of those that you know that aren't able to be here tonight, or other people in your communities that want to give their comments on these things, we do have about a month to take those comments in, digest them, and kind of respond. So this is our project location. You're all probably aware these two corridors are, not far apart from one another. So we wanted to make sure we were addressing these kind of cut through roads and speeds along them. Milltown Road down here, McKennans Church up here. So I'm going to go through a little bit of history for each of these corridors really quickly before we touch on our actual concepts. But for Milltown Road, we did collect speed data. There was a speeding issue observed with the 85th percentile speed of 48 miles per hour. Then after that, we did install one radar speed sign in 2020. We did a truck restriction inventory as a result of some other concerns regarding truck traffic on the roadway. And then we did do a speed limit study in July of 2021, which didn't recommend a reduced speed limit. After that, we did actually put a radar speed sign in the opposite direction and did a further truck restriction inventory kind of on the ends of the corridor. And now in June 2022, we have our traffic calming concepts completed, and you'll see those shortly. But I do want to point out that our traffic calming locations are in this map down here. So we have 4 for Milltown Road, 4 locations where we are proposing traffic calming. So here's a slide for the McKennans Church Road history. This one goes back a little further. I found some history on police enforcement in 2017, but then we did collect that speed data, which also showed an 85th percentile that was above the posted speed limit. We conducted a speed limit sign inventory. We actually did a speed limit study and found that a reduced speed limit was warranted in, I think, north of Bardell Drive. This used to be 40, and now it's 35. In addition to that, some additional signage was installed for speed limits and no passing on the shoulder. And we do have a radar speed sign, or actually maybe 2 radar speed signs now on this corridor, with the most recent one being installed last month. So now we're here in June 2022 with our traffic calming concepts, and we wanted to point out where these 3 locations are proposed along McKennans Church Road. So just for reference, these 3 locations are what you're going to see coming up. Just a real quick slide. We just wanted to touch on the existing conditions of each of these roads. They are slightly different, but they both did have speeding issues with 85th percentile, 11 to 13 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. So this is why we are looking into these traffic calming options. And we did take a look at the crash data, and that's something that we just wanted to note in here that as I said, each of these roadways are a little bit different, but Milltown Road, half of them were injury crashes, and McKennans Church Road did have a lot of crashes in the past 3 years. This is like our existing conditions, and if we do move forward with these traffic calming options, we'd like to see how that changes in the future. So what are our proposed improvements? So we are suggesting median islands with pedestrian crossings and rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So this would actually provide physical roadway narrowing and horizontal deflection in the roadway, as well as a safe pedestrian crossing to get across the street. These would be activated by pushing a button, so they wouldn't be flashing all the time, only when a pedestrian is trying to cross. And it would have little to no impact on emergency vehicles. We do have these 2 photos on the bottom of the screen where there are existing implementations of these. And they vary in size, length, stuff like that. But we just wanted to show what they look like in real life before we show you the actual concepts that are computer generated. So as I said, Milltown Road has 4 locations where we're suggesting these median islands. So this is the first of 4. So this is the south leg of Milltown Road at Pecksniff Road, where we're suggesting this median island, and that would provide that horizontal deflection in the roadway to help calm those speeds down a little bit. And so I'm not going to spend too long going through each of these. They're all relatively the same thing, just in different locations on the corridor. But this is the first one. The second one is actually at St. John's Church. So this one would provide a connection for those crossing. It's a school there, church activities, things of that nature. The third one is just south of McClary Drive. There's an existing bus stop on the north side. Just another median island. This one is not at an intersection per se. It's kind of mid-block. And the fourth one is just north of Dartmouth Road. So this one would connect kind of those two bus stops as you see there in the imagery. But these are all could change a little bit in terms of, 10 feet to the east, 10 feet to the west. This is the concept plan. So there are it's still some wiggle room with like the exact locations, but this is where we're expecting. So those were the 4 Milltown Road concepts. Now I think, yes, we're going to the McKennans Church Road concepts. So the first one on McKennans Church Road is actually on, I'm sorry, I'm just noticing now that this is Milltown Road, but meant to be McKennans Church Road. This would kind of provide a access to the shopping center from the apartments, kind of mid-block, not an intersection as well, to help slow speeds as they approach or come out of that residential section. The second one of the 3 is just south of Pecksniff Road, on the south leg. So this is similar to the one on Milltown Road at Pecksniff, similar kind of design. But again, all of these have these rectangular rapid flashing beacons that you can press to cross the roads. And the third one is just on the south leg of Bardell Drive. So again, these are all very similar. We just wanted to show you kind of a detailed how would this affect certain driveways or intersections, things like that. And we did want to talk about the project schedule and next steps for these. Today was our working group meeting with a comment period going out 1 month. So with that said, we could initiate the design phase this fall for these with an anticipated construction phase of fall 2023 or spring 2024, pending anything that we find in the field that could, cause challenges for these designs. But really the next steps for everyone here is to review the project website, give us comments about these concepts, and I have some contact information here on the bottom to let you know who to contact. Wendy's on this call. She's definitely willing to kind of chat through comments if you have them after this meeting. And I think that is all I have to say. That the presentation is now over. So I think we are ready to take questions at this time. I don't know if Wendy, you want to facilitate or how we do this.
I can also help with that.
Okay.
If folks have a question, you can feel free to raise your hand, and then, or you can also write it in the chat, and then we can enable you to unmute yourself. It looks like there is. Wendy, can you see the Q&As? It's
Yes.
what are you doing to divert traffic during construction?
Oh, I didn't see that one. Hold on. I think that would probably be more of a Peter question.
So the roadway would still remain open during construction. It would be handled through lane closures, while flagger operations, so that you would still be able to maintain traffic while construction is underway.
I guess would those be done simultaneously? I mean, if you're looking at construction, I mean, kind of piggyback on this. I don't want me to jump in, but just kind of spark that question in my mind. Would one street be done first, or would you be looking at both McKennans and Milltown being done simultaneously?
We could weigh the option of doing one versus another, or we can look at how they could be done simultaneously. Again, with being able to maintain traffic during the construction, They could likely go simultaneously. We might be able to do more so from an equipment perspective of like knowing how material delays have occurred with regards to various items. We might be able to package them all together at the same time so that we can get all the materials in hand so that we minimize construction activity that is out there. But that's what we'd work out throughout the design process to see how we'd be able to construct these two corridors, knowing the timeline that was just presented.
And Peter, how long will the project take for both of them?
So typically projects of this magnitude, a location could take about 90 days at the high end. So if each individual location is packaged individually, you're talking now that 3-month window at each one. I think we'd be able to expedite that a little bit quicker based on what we've experienced with constructing these RRFBs statewide, which we have about 60 of these locations, 60 of these applications. It's just in a different manner that we're trying to utilize here. And really a lot of that delay in that 90 days is caused by just waiting for material to come in.
So each traffic calming location is up to 90 days.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
There's questions in the chat. I mean, not just in Q&A. So I just wanted to share that with the other panelists here.
Yeah, we can actually go to, I think the one in the chat is also similar to another one in the Q&A, but there is a question about if it's going to take 2 years to complete this, what do we do in the interim? And then there's also a question about, why is there not more police presence and strict policing? So I think those are related if you guys want to tackle that.
Sure. So I guess I'll touch on the successfulness. So when we deploy these devices, and we have information on our strategic highway safety plan website that we can certainly share with individuals if necessary. We're seeing when we deploy the application, like around a 30 to sometimes a 50% improvement with regards to the existing conditions. And we're talking vehicle speeds as well as motorist compliance and pedestrian safety elements. So the feasibility or the comfort level of a pedestrian utilizing these crossings compared to what exists today. So we have seen a lot of success with this application. This is the first time we're utilizing it in a calming sense to try to address both the speeding component along both of these corridors, as well as providing connectivity to some of the existing infrastructure or the land uses that exist, or the DART facilities that are present, to kind of bring in and touch on both the PEDs and safety and the speeding component. What can be done in the now? We can continue to coordinate, looking at ways to coordinate with our law enforcement agencies and partners is always an option. I know that has always been a discussion for the last several years with the history that Nicole went through. I think there was mention of some of the truck related aspects that are being continued to utilize or being pursued, and that's just mainly updating signage with regards to the corridor. If there's other locations for the placement of additional speed limit signs, because there may not be in other strategic locations, we could certainly look at that. But it's more so really the big kind of next steps is to get this effort into the design process so that we can then move to the construction piece. And if the design is done sooner, we might be able to pull that construction implementation up a season to like the summer of 2023.
Okay, we do have a question from M.E. Norris. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. If you can just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Hi. We just were indicating that the speeding appears to be a major issue also on Milltown Road and Duncan. And I know there was a comment made about the police presence, but is consideration being given to traffic calming or speeding on Duncan, particularly in light of the schools that are also on that road? And of course, the police station that's on that road.
So we haven't looked at Duncan Road at this time. So right now, we're just looking at Milltown Road and McKennans Church Road.
And what would
I
be
don't, to my knowledge. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, what would be the process to request at least that maybe be considered?
You would need to go through Senator Manspinos and Representative Wilson and ask them to have it studied.
Okay.
How about more police presence?
And the police presence?
So the police presence, we have contacts at Newcastle County Police as well as state police that we can coordinate with regards to not just these two corridors, but then also Duncan Road, to see if it's on their agenda. But also too is we can also initiate at least some data collection aspects now, with the concern that's mentioned right now with regards to Duncan Road, just to see again what are the speed levels, what are existing conditions, like where signs and what kind of condition is the striping in. So there's some things that we can do right now based on just the inquiry that we're talking about or receiving right now.
Thank you.
And Peter, since hi, Mary.
Hi, Ken.
How are you? Since Mary's requested this, I mean, is there something that we can at least start looking into as far as Duncan Road goes?
So that's the data side, and then the field evaluations with regards to existing conditions. Plus two is we'll be able to look at just the historical components, because I don't know the history. We'd have to look at with regard to Duncan Road, as to, you know, what are we seeing data wise? What have we done from a stepwise countermeasure deployment perspective, compared to, you know, there's history for both of these corridors on Milltown and McKennans Church Road, which is now where we kind of, when we think of like the tools in the toolbox and that stepwise approach, we're at that countermeasure of providing the physical traffic calming measures to try to address, you know, the concerns that have been talked about for the last several years.
The E. Norris here has a question as well.
Sure, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Ed. I'm Mary's husband. We live almost at the corner of Duncan and Milltown Road. The outstanding problem with the traffic and the calming from at least our residents seems to be speeding. And it's ridiculous speeding. It's not the kind of speeding that another sign or another 30 or 35 per hour limit sign is really, I think, going to help. We're all familiar, for example, with Ellesmere, and most of us who live in the area and have lived for a while know that if you speed through Ellesmere, you're going to pay for it. And it would seem to me that a good dose of that would help at least the speeding issue on Duncan and Milltown Road.
So I want to just be, I don't want to assume anything. So is the request mainly to increase enforcement activity, not just along these two corridors, but on Duncan Road? Is that what am interpreting that correctly?
Yeah, I think so. For some reason, people seem to have the will to just fly to the intersection of Duncan and Milltown and then speed away from it. For example, the speed limit is in front of our house is 30 miles an hour. people regularly accelerate like drag racing from the intersection, say down Duncan Road by the water tower, and then coast the rest of the way down to where Anna P. Moat School is. It happens daily. And I believe if someone just sat and monitored that for a day or two, or even now and then, that I think you might agree with me. And if this is a forum for requesting more policing of the speeding on Duncan and Milltown Road, yes, I'd like to request that.
So the department can certainly make an inquiry over to, again, our partnering agencies at Delaware State Police and Newcastle County Police with regard to enforcement. But the department doesn't have enforcement authority to ticket speeders or even enforce that component. That is a law enforcement agency responsibility. But again, because of the partnership we have with those two agencies, we can certainly inquiry. I would encourage individuals that do have concerns or would like to see more, the police presence, to contact the police non-emergency line. Because when they do get that inquiry, they're typically recorded and they're documented on their end, that they can then utilize it for statistics and information. So I would not just rely on the department, but also I would encourage individuals to make that known with the local police agencies as well.
So call the county police and request more policing.
Correct. We can make contact with the county police based on the request that we're hearing tonight, and have been communicating with them as well. But I just want to make sure that, I'm also encouraging anybody to also make that call to county police as well, with regards to the concern.
And Peter, if they could also email Spiros and I, and we could get a hold of Councilman Sheldon's office and also put a request that way too.
Yes, I know. I regularly talk with the county police about this area and share the concerns that I've heard from all of you, and they understand it. I believe 10%, the statistic I heard is 10% of all the tickets that Newcastle County Police issue come from Milltown and McKennans Church Road. So they understand the situation, and I've reiterated my hope and desire that, given the resources that they currently have, that they can, make sure that they place cars, on both on McKennans and Milltown, when, at appropriate times to serve as a deterrent and catch people when they are speeding. So it's a regular conversation I have with the county on my end.
Okay, great. Let's get back to some of the question and answers. There's a question about if the shoulders will be safer to walk, ride scooters and bikes, and if they'll be passing in the shoulder.
I know that we have some instances where we have said we put the signs up for don't pass in the shoulder. And I think, Nicole, we have another location that we're looking at right now too, correct?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
Milltown or McKennans, whichever one doesn't already have one. The other, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we are looking at some locations for the do not pass on the shoulder. For the median islands, it's going to reduce the shoulder, so cars shouldn't be passing on the shoulder in those locations anyway. So.
Okay. What other means to calm traffic were considered? Were stop signs an option?
We don't install stop signs to regulate traffic speeds. So that installing stop signs was not an option that we looked at on this road, on either roadway. Some of the other things were some striping options, but they weren't really feasible in these locations. at this time. And I don't remember the others that we looked at either. Nicole?
I think the striping option was, we were looking at lane narrowing, but these median islands are physically narrowing the lanes and making the vehicle shift. So this one was preferred over a striping type option
Mhm.
that people could just drive over or around or anything like that.
And plus, with the success that we're seeing again with the application, we brought the two, one on Polyjumping Hill Road and the other one on Route 9 in Dobbinsville. We're seeing just from again from a compliance perspective, both of those locations improved by over 30% based on the before condition, and that's really what we want to see, is that improvement with the physical infrastructure type recommendation versus just the signs and the markings, which we've tried for several years of strategically placing new signs, putting in new radar, or the deployment of the radar speed signs. Yeah, and so again, thinking that stepwise countermeasure of what kind of tools are in our toolbox, we're at that moment of time of looking at more of a physical infrastructure improvement.
Okay, we have another hand raised. Antonio, I'm gonna go ahead. You're just gonna have to unmute yourself.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hey, so I did pose the question in regards to the what other options you looked at, and the reasoning for that is because I do use Milltown Road a lot just for walking my dog, etc. And I do not often see a lot of pedestrian traffic trying to cross. So I just I've also used a lot of I've seen these employed in Newcastle and other areas where there is, you know, like parks where people use and frequent often. And I'm just afraid that in Milltown Road and we just won't see those lights trigger often. And if they do, I'm just concerned that people will not necessarily slow down. So that's why I was wondering what else we looked at, whether speeding cameras or something else is an option. I don't know if that's something that you guys do. But my concern again is that I have a feeling that they're not going to be used often, so people are just kind of going to fly by anyways or not give the right of way to pedestrians when they do get employed.
So some of those locations that were selected with regards to the deployment of the concept were at locations that had existing crosswalks already that are marked on the roadway. Now we're just enhancing the treatment of that existing marked condition with the active device as well as the physical infrastructure. We've seen, again, like from the before cases with a lot of these locations, where from both a driver and a pedestrian compliance perspective, are numbers that are percentages that kind of fit what you're describing of like that usage and the comfort level is really low. Where we were seeing, again, the Polyjumping Hill, just to give an example, there was a 3% comfortability or condition that exists with regards to motorists yielding or peds being able to cross the road, or when peds were crossing the road. After the implementation of the device, that's where it started to increase to over 30% of improved condition. And that's, again, when you tailor raised conditions and more so the median island condition into it to then allow for more of a narrowing cross section, you then get a lower speed kind of condition, as well as then when those devices are active, because you may have a ped that is desired to cross the roadway, it just improves that safety condition as a whole. So again, we were trying to mirror or merge two emphasis areas, peds and speeding, into one application with the deployment of these concepts.
Peter, could I follow up with that? So when we have the 4 concrete medians on Milltown and then 3 on McKennans Church, they narrow the roadway, correct?
Correct.
So when a car or vehicle approaches it, it will hopefully make them slow down a bit because the roadway shortens. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And we're staying within the existing footprint of the roadway. So edge of pavement, or face of curb to face of curb is
Right.
where we're trying to deploy these applications. So you're naturally creating a narrower lane shoulder, as well as providing that physical pedestrian refuge for the additional user that may try to cross the roadway.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question in the Q&A. Will through traffic past St. John's during morning and afternoon school use be accommodated when the project is completed?
Through traffic. So I want to make sure I'm understanding this. So through traffic, not just at the St. John's crossing, but any of the locations is not being changed. Because again, we're not removing a lane or putting in a restriction that would deter, say, the movement into an access point. So such as like a driveway or the St. John's Church. So I guess if I'm not answering this question based on the context of it, please raise your hand and we could get you, you could talk a little bit more in context with regards to that. But again, through traffic is not being changed or diverted, whether through construction and or through the project, because we're not removing a lane.
Peter, he did raise his hand. So Noel,
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you. You're just gonna have to unmute yourself now.
Okay. My question was raised by one of my constituents. I'm the president of the Sheridan Square Limestone Gardens Civic Association. And his concern was, now as it stands, when St. John's School is in the morning or in the afternoon, and I guess also during church, before church, after church, there are crossing guards out there and traffic backs up considerably both ways, but they're still allowed a through traffic on the sides. And his concern was, will that be cut off now with this new project?
It shouldn't disrupt anything. So the crossing guard currently has, there's a device out there that's overhead. And this would be upgrading that existing device to be in line with our new application, or the rectangular rapid flash beacon application. So if a crossing guard was still needed at that location, they could still utilize it. It would then be a different device that would be activated. But it would be up to, I guess, the St. John's and Newcastle County PD in that coordination aspects of the needs of that crossing guard based on our final project that we'd be implementing.
I'm hearing your answer that it probably won't change from the way it is now. Being a inhibition to traffic on Milltown Road during those times.
Correct. We're not changing there's volume or I guess distributing volume in a different manner. This is a safety deployment application that's honing in on the speeding concern and then tying into the pedestrian safety component.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just follow up with that, Peter? I'm looking at the slide and I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. The crosswalk there already exists, and that is where that is where the blinking light is. And then to its right, as I'm looking, I see it looks like arrows coming out. I mean, I guess that's the driveway. So there's no impact, there.
Correct.
So, okay, I just wanted to make sure I was reading that correct. Thank you.
Okay, the next few questions. Why have we decided to stop at Dartmouth instead of continuing your Duncan and beyond towards 41? There's also some concerns with law enforcement and that effectiveness.
So Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong. So the entire traffic calming effort looked at Milltown Road from Dartmouth to the McKennans Church intersection. It was now from a feasibility perspective of, again, where existing pedestrian desire potential lines such as the connection of DART facilities, existing crossings such as the St. John's and the one at Pixwich. And based on the feasibility or the implementation aspects, which then looked at existing infrastructure that's out there, is where it was determined of looking at, of finding a location that was near in between that, or I guess that's south of or west of the Duncan Road intersection, and Dartmouth was the most logical next location to deploy. There's treatments, if we were to look at Duncan and Milltown Road, where we would look to deploy just signalized pedestrian crossings versus a rapid flashing beacon. You wouldn't mix the two at a signal. You would put a different type of just tying into the existing intersection signal that's out there at Milltown and Duncan Road. But it was more so of looking at the from a more of a feasibility of construction design, where could that traffic calming feature be deployed?
Okay, the next few questions are regarding the shoulders, which I think we've talked about. The shoulders will be reduced, correct?
At the concept, at the locations of the deployment of or where the rectangular rapid flashing beacon and the median islands, that's where the shoulder would be narrowed to get that treatment in.
Okay. So there's concern about safety while walking on the road along the corridor.
Are any of these roads eligible for, was it the PAD's program? I got the right program for pathways. I can't remember the exact name.
The pedestrian PAR, is that the one that PAR?
Thank you. Yes.
So sidewalk, like longitudinal sidewalk, typically it's something to from an MPO and a county perspective. And that's from the PAR program. That's a lot of times where the prioritization comes from with those recommendations or suggestions. So I don't know from a walkability perspective, has like a longitudinal sidewalk been talked to, say, WMAPCO from that walkability component? I'm unaware of that component of it being looked at or considered or thought of. But that's where I would probably start, is from a WMAPCO standpoint and a walkability component. Is that something that would be looked at or considered from a prioritization standpoint in getting, because any type of project of that magnitude would have to be programmed into the capital transportation program, the CTP.
And is that a request both Representative Williams and I can make to WMAPCO, or does that go through DelDOT?
You can have the conversations with WMAPCO. I could certainly send some correspondence, again, a partnering agency, to see historically, have they done anything? Would they consider it, to then see? But when you start talking about sidewalk, it then also becomes into, a lot of impacts, because you have a lot of driveways, properties, residential properties, not just, common space for communities. that could deter anybody or the interest of even pursuing that type of project. But I could certainly inquiry with individuals that will MAPCO to see, again, have these two corridors come up from a sidewalk standpoint.
Okay, we have a couple hands raised. So Kara, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you. So you'll just have to unmute yourself now.
Hi, yeah, in regards to the sidewalk situation, I do have a very good example. So I am past Truett Farms. So at the end, right before you hit Truett Farms, the sidewalk ends and then it's just the wide shoulder. There are several kids who walk that street in the mornings to get to the school bus stop up by McClary. And, you know, like everybody else said, people are speeding. They're going, 50 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour down the road. And, these kids have to walk on this road on a daily basis, especially when it's dark out. And I think sidewalks would be something that, from a safety standpoint, would be something that the county would definitely want to take into consideration, so that these kids aren't walking on the road at 6 o'clock in the morning in the dark to the school bus. That's a perfect example, because I see at least like 2 or 3 walking up there, to the bus. And I'll be honest, I mean, I walk out to my mailbox, which is at the end of the road, and I'm like, geez, people, come on. If somebody decided to pass, they would totally take me out just trying to get my mail. So, I think it's something that definitely is, I understand from a financial, monetary aspect, sidewalks are very expensive, but I think it's something that's definitely worth the time to look into doing.
Great, thank you, Kara.
Mhm.
We have another hand raised, Ms. Orensky. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you. You'll just have to unmute yourself now.
Kara, I'm so glad you said that. So congratulations for that. You are not the only one. I go out to get my mail and they are passing at 45 to 53 miles an hour. That makes cars about 8 feet away from us. There is no barrier. There is no curb. That is just a car. Now, these medians I can understand, but they're just going to be flying on this open road. I was hoping that we could make this whole entire road appear the way that it is supposed to be. Right now, a 12-foot shoulder that's what you have on highways. I just think it's so open and it's so dangerous for each and every one of us trying to live here, to edge our gardens, to get our mail, to take our trash out. That's all I have.
And was that Jill? Was that you speaking?
That was me.
And so that's where we understand, and we've heard from yourself and others within the community of something more needs to be done along not just Milltown Road but McKennans Church Road for several years. And that's, again, where from our viewpoint of, and even from tools within our toolbox in traffic engineering, we're looking at trying to deploy something that, again, we've not done before from a speed traffic calming measure, even though we're seeing results in that category. A lot of times these types of applications are being pursued primarily just from the PED perspective of connecting the various components or the infrastructure. That's where, to me, but we're seeing the success in the speeding category. When you talk bigger changes along a corridor, so you're now talking prioritization of a major project into the capital transportation program, which then requires identifying and getting it into the long range transportation plan with Will MAPCO and the county. And that's where it goes into is what level of, walkability components could WillMapCo provide, if at all, historically, or have they historically done anything on Milltown Road? If not, what could they do? And is it something from a prioritization standpoint they could help? Because again, when WillMapCo prioritizes projects for the Newcastle County area, that's what then makes it into our capital transportation program. These scenarios that or the concepts that we've thrown out tonight are things that we could deploy in traffic engineering through our contracts, our design efforts, and it's really in our scope of work. When you start getting outside of that, that's where you're now needing that capital transportation program.
Right, I understand. It's just, we do not have sidewalks. McKennans Church Road does. The other end of Milltown Road does. We do not. And I know that on the other end, it's within 10 years that they've got a sidewalk. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Peter, would it be helpful to also just mention how this project's going to be paid for?
Sure. So we have, so in traffic engineering, we have a funding source and program that is provided by FHWA. And so we're going to utilize that program and to fund it with federal dollars. And if we get through, when we get through the design, because designs of this nature typically take about 10 to 12 months. Again, if there's no design constraints, again, when we think of utilities and right of way, if we have to get into drainage, that's why, again, some of these things from a concept level, they might shift a little bit of a few feet here and there so that we could try to avoid those obstacles. But once we get through the design, we're set and we're already identified that these two corridors are a priority and would be funded through that federal program that we receive money from the federal government.
And one more follow-up. If we were to go through WillMapCo and request them to look at the sidewalks, typically how long does a WillMapCo project take in order to get on the books? Because I know Spiros and I are doing the roundabouts right now in Marshallton. And I know that has taken quite a bit of time for us to even get to the point where we're going to actually have a project before us. So can you give us an idea about if we were to go to WillMapCo and request this, how long are we talking for them to even look into it and make a decision and for the project to actually happen? Do you know?
I do not, but Marshallton, I think you could speak with regards to the experience with Marshallton. I think I was a part of that, what has it been, almost a decade ago, about when those conversations either first started or were in the study period. And then it was then prioritizing it and getting into the CTP. And that's where a lot of those long-term type of and large infrastructure impact projects, it gets prioritized through WillMapCo. It can then be identified in this as a line item in the CTP, and then it works through the funding, the right-of-way acquisition, the design phase. So it is a longer process. That's why, again, I'll certainly circle back with WillMapCo to see if this corridor has ever been studied, what would it take, things of that nature.
Thank you.
Okay, so circling back to the question and answer, there's a question about if the recording will be available to watch. Yes, we can figure out how to share it with folks that have attended. Senator Mansavinos, Representative Williams, I'll probably coordinate with you to share it with folks. The next two questions, again, are circling back to walking. Carolyn's question is specific to the speeding from McKennans Church up to Cooper's Farm area. Not sure where that is in relation to what we're looking at now.
So I think it's along Milltown. If I'm not misinterpreting the question, I believe the question is in regards to, as a motorist is approaching the calming or the application as you're coming from McKennans Church Road, and you're traveling along the corridor, you could see the speeding in between the 2 points. But again, with the deployment of multiple applications in a row, the goal is that there may not be as high of speeds being driven, because we're narrowing it down and we're having kind of a what we'll call like a pinch point along the corridor, so that it's physically forcing a driver behavior change, with the goal of then those 85th percentile speeds that are a lot higher. Like right now we're seeing close to, it was mentioned, but we're showing about 48, so around 50 miles an hour compared to the posted that's at 35. It's how far, with the hope of bringing those 85th percentile speeds down to a more reasonable threshold or condition than what is going on today, where there's no application or no calming devices along the corridor outside of just signs and striping. So you could see some influx of speeds in between. But again, the goal of this is to try to capture and bring that speeding down as a whole.
Peter, I think Cooper's Farm is, I believe that's the Yale Road, like in between Milltown and Duncan Road. And we put some striping on Yale Road too, because there was a cut through from Duncan Road to Milltown and Milltown to Duncan to avoid the traffic light. If I'm not, I believe.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We deployed centerline striping and some other devices on Yale Road to help try to address that. But again, that was really kind of the need to try to look at calming measures that could be close to really I'll say the beginning and ending limits, or closer to the Duncan Road intersection and closer to McKennans Church, while trying to balance the constraints and the infrastructure that exists out there, so that it wasn't a longer stretch of roadway or tangent section with no calming devices in between, like the first one that you may come to at either St. John's or McClary Drive.
There's a comment that Cooper Farm goes from Harvard to Dartmouth. Kara, I'm going to go ahead, and we have another hand raised. Kara.
Hi.
Oops. I might have accidentally muted you. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Again. Sorry. My fault.
When the project is complete, is there going to be any type of communication put out somewhere letting motorists know that, say, when they cross over, if they're coming from Limestone or if they're coming from the other side of Milltown Road, whichever way they're coming, that, these medians are going to be there, the signage is going to be there, from a county perspective, is there going to be any type of communication? Because, to Antonio's point at the beginning of the conversation, when he said, right now there isn't a lot of pedestrian crossing. You have a few, I use it because I like to run in the mornings, and, I'll cross the streets when I can. But, just so that people are aware that this project is going to be happening and they're not coming across flying down the road and all of a sudden, oh, wait, the road's narrowing and then we have accidents.
So from a construction zone, so when the project, prior to even going to construction, there would be press releases, communication that we provide that we're getting ready to start this project. And then throughout the project, there's various aspects with regards to what is occurring with the work zones. If we need to deploy message boards with regards to, construction activity happening or things of that nature, we could certainly look at incorporating them and pursuing them. After construction, we're gonna have staff deploy resources so that we can measure this, the outcome of the deployment of these and the constructability. So what are we seeing data wise from a speed perspective? What are we seeing crash wise? Things of that nature. It would also, as part of the deployment of the devices, we would install the necessary signs and the pavement markings that are needed to warn a motorist of what is out there. That's why, Nicole, I don't know if you go to the existing location slide. Yeah. Similar to what we have at the Polydrummond and then the Dobbinsville Route 9 location. So Polydrum is the one on the left and Dobbinsville is the one on the right. So we would deploy the necessary devices as part of that implementation process.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any more
Can you
questions.
go
Sorry.
through next steps again? Just again, I think there's some folks, I know we talked about what the phases are here, and again, what the timeline can be, what hopefully could be the most accelerated timeline to this, and what our next steps are.
Sure. So perfect, Nicole. So again, tonight we're meeting with the working group. Our immediate action is to upload this presentation to the website so that anybody can then share the website and the information to their neighbors, to the community members. And so really over the course of the next month, we'll be monitoring to see, our comments, what kind of Q&As we've received to date. Based on that information, we could move right into the design. We could probably, from an accelerated standpoint or schedule, we might be able to start this summer to get into a design perspective, at least looking at some of the preliminary information, pulling right away, understanding utilities, things of that nature. But then over the course of really the fall and the winter is when we start getting into the detailed design plans for the application, or for these applications on both the corridors, with then the anticipation that we are going to have the funding available to us really July 1st of next year, so July 1st, 2023. And if we can get through the design, really then that fall, spring 23, 24 could slide up into from a constructability standpoint, if need be. So just thinking from an accelerated standpoint. But again, understanding obstacles and constraint, our goal is really to have these to be in construction kind of the fall and the spring of 23, 24.
And just to kind of circle back, a couple other things that we discussed. Number one, we're going to, confer with Representative Williams, but we would like to look at, a study for Duncan Road, just to make sure that got noted, similar to all this, as we talked about earlier. And then also, we're going to connect with WMAPCO regarding, see again if there's any history for sidewalks and anything in the corridor on Milltown Road, and see if there's anything that has been done there, and investigate that a little bit.
Correct. And then I'm going to reach out to county police about the Duncan, Milltown, and the McKennans Church, and make sure that they're, from a police presence and an enforcement standpoint, those three corridors are on the radar.
And then a follow-up question. Once folks provide their public comment, how will that be shared with the senator and I just to know if you're going to make changes to the plan or.
We would communicate with you, whether we set up another meeting,
Okay.
or we just follow up in an email and a phone call. So, we'll definitely have conversations, come the end of the comment period, with the two of you as well as Representative Ramon.
Okay, everyone, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Thank you all for your time this evening. And as we've said, the information on the website will be posted on the website. So feel free to, submit comments, share with your communities. And you all are, I believe, aware of how to reach out to all of us. So feel free to reach out as you need to. So thank you all.
Yes, thank
Nice
you,
evening.
everybody.